What if just one word had the power to erase your reputation, strip away your rights, and doom you to a life worse than death? In ancient Norse culture, that word was argr, a word so heavy with shame that being called it could destroy your place in society completely. In a Viking world, being a man wasn't just about how you looked or acted. It defined your social status, spiritual role, and legal power to be labeled argr, which loosely meant unmanly, weak, or morally twisted. Wasn't just an insult. It was a serious charge. In Old Norse laws, like the Icelandic argr, this word carried life-changing consequences. It accused someone of going against everything Viking masculinity stood for: bravery, strength, and dominance. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop a comment below, and please like the video. Thank you. Being called argr could mean you were seen as a coward, took on roles considered feminine in male relationships, or practiced sorcery. Specifically seer, a magical art mostly done by women. Men who used it were seen as shamefully crossing a line. Even a mighty god Odin was criticized in Norse stories for using seer. It was said no man could touch it without being disgraced. This wasn't playground name-calling. To call someone argr was a formal accusation, known as ni, a word meant to ruin a man's honor. If you were accused, you had one choice: prove your manhood in a ritual duel called a holmgang. If you didn't fight back, it meant you accepted the label. And the punishment? Severe and permanent. In Viking-era Iceland, around the 10th and 11th centuries, being called argr and not fighting back could destroy your life completely. This wasn't just about shame, it was a legal death sentence. The punishment? Outlawry, the harshest penalty under Norse law. But outlawry wasn't just banishment, it was social erasure. The accused lost all legal rights and protection. Anyone could kill him, and no one would be punished for it. He became a ghost among the living, hunted and hated, and it didn't stop there. The disgrace could poison your entire bloodline. Families would cut ties with the accused to avoid being stained by the dishonor. To be labeled argr was to be seen as filthy in spirit, unworthy of standing among warriors or men of honor. Skagangr. Sent into the wild to die, one of the most brutal punishments in Viking law was skagangr, which means going into the forest. But this wasn't a peaceful retreat. It was legalized abandonment, a calculated sentence meant to strip a man of everything: his home, his name, his humanity. Once declared argr, an outlaw, the man was cast out of society, forced to live in isolation, beyond human contact. He could not rely on family, community, or the law. He was left to die, hunted like an animal in the wilderness. This punishment is recorded in the Gragas, Iceland's medieval law code. It was used for the most serious crimes: murder without restitution, practicing sorcery, or being called argr and refusing to defend your honor. There were two levels of outlawry. Lesser outlawry, Furbogsgar, lasted 3 years, after which the person could return, if they committed no further crimes while in exile. Full outlawry, skagangr, permanent. No return, no second chance. One word, one sentence. Total erasure in Viking Iceland. If a man was accused of being argr and didn't fight back, the punishment wasn't just harsh. It was absolute, that he wasn't thrown in jail. He wasn't even given a trial. He was cut off from humanity. This wasn't exile. This was social execution, that he was declared an outlaw, utligr. That meant no one could help him. Not his friends, not his family. He couldn't live in towns, own property, trade, pray, or even ask for protection. If anyone saw him, they could kill him on the spot, and not only would the killer walk free, they might even claim his land or belongings. Skagangr. Cast in the wild to die, the worst sentence was skagangr, walking into the forest. But this wasn't poetic. It meant being banished from human life entirely. No food, no fire, no roof, no name, no past. You were as good as dead. The sagas tell us of men like Grettir Asmunderson, who wandered the wilderness for years after his outlawry. He wasn't just battling wild animals or the cold. He was fighting loneliness, madness, and slow spiritual decay. Most didn't last long. There were no funerals for men like him, no songs, no legacy. Their death started the moment they were cast out. hunted like animals. Forgotten like strangers.To the Norse. Manhood was sacred. It meant strength, honor, and courage, even violence when needed. But if a man was seen as unmanly, too soft, too passive, too different, he wasn't just judged. He was erased. Outlaws had no rights. No rehabilitación. Just a slow, exposed journey toward death. And the worst part? It didn't end with them without a shame so deep. It erased bloodlines in Viking culture. Your identity wasn't just yours. It belonged to your clan, your ancestors, your future children. Honor was passed down like land or stories. But if a man was branded argr or nying or dishonored, his family didn't just feel shame. They feared contamination. His name would vanish from genealogies, family trees, and spoken history. Entire lineages would cut ties to avoid being stained. Not out of cruelty, but survival that if you descended from a Ninger, you could lose marriage prospects, land, or political standing. Better to pretend he never existed. These men weren't just disowned. They were deleted. Masculinity forged in iron, and fear being labeled unmanly in Viking times meant more than insults. It meant death, exile, and total invisibility from society, from your family, from history. The Norse used the law not just to punish, but to protect a rigid idea of masculinity and to destroy anyone who didn't fit. And that judgment still echoes today. Which of our modern ideas still punish people for being different? Which unwritten rules still decide who gets remembered and who gets erased? As the ancient Havamal says, cattle die, kinsmen die, and you will die too. But a good name will live forever. In Viking culture, death was inevitable, but being forgotten? That was the true nightmare that To live on. You needed more than breath. You needed honor, respect, and a name worth remembering. Warriors carved their stories into sagas. Kings built monuments. Even poets were celebrated because memory was currency. But for the Ninger, the dishonored, no one spoke their name. Their stories were left untold. Their graves unmarked. No children claimed them. No ancestors blessed them. They were unwritten from history, as if they never lived at all. Erasure was the final weapon the Norse knew that swords could kill a man, but shame could kill his legacy. That's why argr wasn't just a slur. It was a weapon sharpened by fear. Fear of difference, fear of weakness, fear of anything that didn't fit the mold of what a man was supposed to be. And when society feared you, it didn't just push you away, it made sure you'd never return. Today, we don't cast people into forests. We don't brand them Ninger. But we still have ways of making people invisible, of silencing voices, cutting ties, and pretending others don't exist at ask yourself. Who do we erase today, and why? Who are the people we label too soft, too loud, too different, too unmanly? Who gets cut from family trees, unfollowed, uninvited, or unspoken? We may not wear swords, but we still wield judgment that we still decide. With our words, our silence, and our systems, who is worthy of being remembered? Honor is a choice. Memory is powered in the end. The Vikings believe that your actions echo beyond the grave. And maybe they were right. Because long after the outlaws' bones turned to dust, it wasn't the forest that killed them that it was forgetting live in a way that demands remembrance. Speak for those who've been silenced, and build a legacy no one can bury. Because names fade, statues fall, but truth, honor, and courage, those are eternal. The Vikings believed a man died twice. Once when his heart stopped beating, and again when his name was spoken for the last time. To be cast out as argr was not just to lose your place in the world, it was to lose your place in time. But today we hold the power they feared most, the power to remember, to rewrite, to choose compassion over condemnation, truth over tradition, legacy over silence. Let this be a warning and a reminder. Don't just chase a name. Earn a legacy. Live in such a way that even if the world tries to forget you, it can't. Because while cattle die and kinsmen die, and we ourselves must die, a noble name will never die if it is carried with honor.